How can you deal with slugs in the most natural way without harming other animals? That's exactly what I'll show and explain in this episode. You probably see a lot of tips online. Some work a little, but in the end the slugs still come back to your favorite plants. Which brings us back to the main questions. What's the best way to control slugs? The slug population in your garden recovers fast, really fast. No matter what you try, they will keep showing up. That's why I've accepted that I cannot win against them. Instead, I focus on taking certain plants off their menu. This year I planted vegetables in my backyard and I don't want slugs eating them. I also planted beautiful dahlias and other flowering plants in my front yard, and I definitely want those to bloom without slug damage. So I need to protect them now and in the future by working with nature instead of against it. But in the short term I also need quick solutions to keep my young plants safe. I made a quick project. I took small nursery pots, cut out the bottoms and stapled sandpapers around them. I was able to buy sandpaper and rolls of copper tape very cheaply at a store called Action. First, I stapled a layer of sandpaper around the seed pots using a stapler. On top of that, I added a strip of copper tape. Both discourage slugs. They don't like crawling over rough surfaces and copper can give them tiny electric shocks. It's not 100% foolproof, but it helps. But if your plants are the only plants they want to eat, then it won't stop them. So you will have to try more discouraging activities to protect your plants. Why do you suddenly see more slugs now? We just had a long dry period. Slugs don't like crawling over dry soil. But now that it's raining again, the soil is moist. Perfect for them. Knowing this helps you use bare soil around important plants as a natural barrier, so that the slugs experience that it's unpleasant to crawl over bare soil to reach your plants. By doing so, you eliminate the shaded areas near your plants where the slugs like to hide. Fortunately, my kitchen also provides materials I can use, like eggshells for example. I use eggshells and coffee grounds. Both have the advantage of improving the soil structure, which allows the plant roots to develop more effectively. Crushed eggshells make the ground rougher, which improves soil health. I sprinkle crushed eggshells around the plants I want to protect, because slugs find it unpleasant to crawl over them. They still might do so if those are the only tasty plants in the garden, but it does help to discourage them. Eggshells offer several benefits for my soil. They add calcium and other minerals, which help prevent plant diseases. They also help neutralize the soil's pH level, allowing plants to absorb nutrients more effectively. Used coffee grounds also have many benefits that I like to take advantage of in my garden. They add nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, 3 essential elements that plants need. Coffee grounds have a slightly acidic pH, so I sprinkle them around acid-loving plants like hydrangeas and rhododendrons. Since the grounds help acidify the soil, I don't need to buy special fertilizers for these plants. On both sides of my vegetable garden, I have acid-loving shrubs. Hydrangeas on one side and berry bushes on the other. So I always spread a layer of coffee grounds on both sides of the garden. That way I keep the slugs closer to my neighbors, and they will have to figure out on their own a way to deal with them. If coffee grounds help discourage slugs from coming into my garden, well, that's a nice bonus. Years ago, I started treating this strip of soil differently, feeding it only with what I prune. I didn't begin this way as a way to fight slugs. It was purely about gardening in a more organic way. That means whenever I prune something or cut back faded plants in my garden, any plant material I remove, it doesn't go on the compost heap. And it definitely doesn't go in the kitchen waste bin. That stuff is pure gold, I don't throw it away. I cut it into small pieces and lay it directly over this strip. This is my hydrangea bed, so I also spread coffee grounds around here. And in this way, the soil organisms get to work on everything I lay down. They break it down into compost right here in the ground, releasing minerals that my plants can use again. I always spread my used coffee grounds over this area to make the soil a bit more acidic right away. Coffee grounds also helps speed up the breakdown of organic material. So I lay down plant matter here and the coffee grounds accelerate its decomposition. It happens really fast. Within just a few weeks, a lot of it is already gone. Mostly, it's the thicker lavender branches I prune that tend to stick around a bit longer. But all the leafy material from the trimmed plants disappears very quickly. And what else have I noticed? It seems to repel slugs. Well, that makes me extra happy. On this side, I planted 2 leftover Brussels sprouts seedling. Honestly, I didn't expect them to survive. But last year, the sprouts I planted here were eaten right away. After just one day, there was nothing left. Now and then I also plant young seedlings that I have as leftover from sowing. I know slugs love to eat young plants. What's important to keep in mind is that nature has its own way of defending against slugs. Once a plant gets eaten, it starts producing defense compounds, making it less tasty to slugs. That's why they don't usually go for weeds or the larger established plants in your garden. But they do target the young seedlings, especially the ones you've sown or bought, because those haven't developed any defenses yet. So I plant a few extra young seedlings here and there as a distraction. That way the slugs go for those and leave my Brussels sprouts and my other plants alone. And even here I notice nature doing its work. Some plants start growing on their own, like licorice plants that self-seeded here last year. I don't really want to keep them, but the slugs eat those first. So they act as a natural decoy, helping protecting my sprouts. Right now, I'm using a combination of short-term methods, because they allow me to quickly start protecting my plants. But I'm also shifting toward long-term thinking to ensure my plants will be better protected from slugs in the future. So for now, it's a mix of things. Not just one solution, not just eggshells or just coffee grounds, because that doesn't work on its own. Not just copper tape, because that's not enough either. It's really about using many things together. I've created a little DIY project using sandpaper and copper tape. Around that, I keep the soil as bare as possible, so slugs have nowhere to hide and don't enjoy crawling over dry, empty ground. I then layer the soil with eggshells and coffee grounds, which also benefit the soil itself. So it's a win-win. I'm building layer upon layer of deterrents, always discouraging them. These are not the plants you're allowed to eat, go nibble on something else. And then I think long term. In the meantime, my garden has the chance to attract natural predators, because slugs do get eaten, especially the naked ones. which are the ones you really want to get rid of. They're eaten by their own natural enemies. The problem is, slug population recover much faster than their predators do. So if you start scattering slug pellets, those also harm the natural enemies. It might help for a while, you will get rid of the slugs, but you also lose the predators. With no slugs left to eat, they either die or they leave. But the slugs will bounce back, and they do that very quickly. And then you've got a slug infestation again, with no natural enemies to help you out. So I'm trying to create balance. The slugs stay in my garden, and that attracts their predators. I'm not trying to kill the slugs. I'm trying to distract them from the plants I really care about. Then the natural enemies can do their jobs. And as the final step in my long-term thinking, I'm going to focus on making my plants stronger. Just look around near these houses. You will see all kinds of wild plants growing. We call them weeds, but that's not really accurate. They're wild plants. And why don't the slugs go there? Why don't they eat those plants? Instead, they're drawn to our gardens to feast on what we've planted. It makes sense, really. Those wild plants have already been eaten before. They've developed defense compounds and just keep growing. They reseed themselves and become more resilient over time. These are plants that can defend themselves against slugs, unlike the ones we sow or the ones we buy every year. Those fresh plants haven't built up any defenses yet, so of course that's what the slugs want to eat. That's why I've been working for a few years now on collecting seeds from my own plants after they've bloomed, and I will sow those again. Especially if slugs have attacked them, the surviving plants will have produced defense compounds. When they bloom, I collect seeds from those tougher plants. And so, every time I sow again using my own seeds, I'm planting seedlings that are better equipped to resist slugs. Well then, what a journey! It looks like I'll end up coexisting with the slugs in my garden, not trying to kill them anymore, but simply protecting my plants and hopefully attracting their natural predators. And that actually has its benefits, because slugs aren't only a nuisance. Even the naked slugs have their advantages. Take the slime they produce, for example. When they eat my plants or crawl around, the slime they leave behind has its own benefits. It contains bacteria and fungi that contribute to the structure of the soil. The microorganisms they carry and produce help break down organic material. So when they move across my mulch layer, made from all the pruned plants I scatter around, they help speed up decomposition. And faster breakdown means more nutrients return to the soil. And when your soil is rich in nutrients, it even helps with weed control. Some of the more troublesome weeds only thrive in poor soil. So, if you need your soil well, you'll also have fewer weeds. In that sense, slugs can actually be quite beneficial in the garden. I hope I've been able to share some helpful tips with you. If I've helped you out, give the video a hype and follow my channel for more organic gardening advice.